All right, go ahead.
Good evening and welcome to the Miami-Dade County League of Cities County Commission Forum. My name is Richard Cooper and I am honored to serve as Executive Director of this organization. I want to thank our current President, Mayor J.C. Bermudez, the Executive Board, and board members for allowing the League to host this forum. I also want to thank the candidates for being here this evening and for their desire to serve our community. Now I would like to introduce our moderator, Willard Shepard. Willard is a 5-time award-winning journalist, attorney, and Gulf War fighter pilot who works for NBC News as an anchor and investigative reporter. We are fortunate to have him once again as our moderator and thank him for volunteering his time to be with us this evening.
Richard, as always, thank you very much. And thank you to all the candidates and their willingness to come forward for our public service to make our community better. I always say there's nothing better for public service, and we all need to do that in whatever realm is best for us, whether it's, in my case, the military or government service, our firefighters, law enforcement officers, school teachers, and people who volunteer in their community all make Miami-Dade County great and what it is and our great diversity. And so those of you willing to come forward and lead our community in public service in a government fashion, thank you very much for making this commitment of your time and effort moving forward. To that point, we will this evening be able to discuss the areas that specifically can affect those members in your districts as they have to make their decisions to vote. And we encourage, of course, everyone, League of Cities, to make sure that you had already been registered. Mail ballots are already out. The mail ballot came to my home a short time ago, a couple of days ago, and the early voting will start here in about 2 weeks. And of course, elections on the 23rd of August. As to how we're going to handle this evening, we're going to go district by district. So those residents who are on board won't get confused with those of you from different districts. We'll be starting with District 10 tonight. And the ground rules basically are each of you will have 2 minutes to make an opening statement. Followed by that, I will be asking a list of questions, and each of you will have a chance for a 1-minute response. And our timekeepers there do an outstanding job. At the League of Cities over there, you'll get a 10-second warning, and then a bell will go off, and we'll ask you to please respect the rules. So with that in mind, I am told that all of the candidates for District 10 are already on board. So we will go ahead and begin with District 10 now. Richard?
Yes, we also have District 12 that just came on.
Okay, Mr.
So
Bermudez.
12.
Okay, got it. I tell you what, let's go ahead and let's start with District 10. And the candidates for District 10 will be Martha Bueno, Susan Corey, Anthony Rodriguez, and Julio C. Sanchez. And doing this in alphabetical order there. And good evening to you, Mr. Bermudez. We will have District 12 coming up next now that you're with us. We're going to start with District 10 here. And Miss Martha Bueno, we're doing this in alphabetical order. You will have the opportunity to go first and make your opening statement that you have for 2 minutes, why people in your district should choose to vote for you, either by mail, early voting, or on the 23rd of August. So you have the floor. Martha? Ms. Bueno? Do we have her? Richard, can you tell if she's with us?
Yes, she's with us.
And is the technical issue on our end or on her end?
Martha, we can't hear you.
Ms. Bueno, can you hear me? Okay, I tell you what, Ms. Corey, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you loud and clear. And just so for our technical team there back at the League of City headquarters, I think you saw Ms. Bueno saying that she can't hear us. So if you all have another way to actually reach out to her off the platform so we can have her coming up next. Ms. Curry, you heard all the instructions and these things that'll be our rules for this evening. And you will be the first person to go tonight. And you have 2 minutes to tell us why people in District 10 should go for you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for having me today. I am running because I've lived in this area for quite a long time, mostly all my life. And what my concerns are have not been addressed. Miami has been not pre-planned. It has grown essentially block by block, street by street. And my concern is that it's time we start addressing some of the issues in our districts, especially in District 10. We have transportation issues, we have housing issues, we have flooding issues, and most of all, we are unincorporated. The entire district. And so my concerns are that we will be voting for a sheriff in 24, and that is going to be extremely important for District 10 and the need to make sure that we address all of the relevant issues. I have a formal experience with law enforcement in the federal government, and I'm also worked as an activist both on the state, local, and the federal areas. So my well-rounded experience, I think, speaks for itself.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Bueno, you are with us now. Could you hear my instructions and my introduction?
I'm sorry, I did miss that. My speaker wasn't
Okay,
working.
no problem. The way we're going to do this evening, we're going district by district so our residents of Miami-Dade County don't get confused as to who will actually be on their ballot. We're starting with your district in District 10. Each person has 2 minutes to make their opening statement. Then I have a list of questions. You'll have a minute to respond. And the timekeeper will give you a 10-second warning. And then your time will run out. We ask everyone to be expeditious with their comments during the course of this evening and respect our timekeeper moving forward. So with that, unless you have any questions for me, you have the floor.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you for hosting this forum. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak to the residents of Miami-Dade County. We don't often get that chance. So again, thank you. My name is Martha Bueno, and I am running for Miami-Dade County Commissioner in District 10 because I got fed up with the way things are done. There is an excessive amount of corruption and problems with our county. And I am just an activist who, I'm a mom of 4, I'm a business owner, I'm an entrepreneur, and I go before the commission meetings very often. And I got frustrated. I got frustrated seeing how much donations people get in order to get bad legislation through, things that don't help the residents. And so I decided to run, and I would love it if I got the support of the community and was able to do this. I am the underdog, and I believe that I bring a lot to the table. Again, I've been an entrepreneur, and I know how to get things done.
Okay, thank you very much for your opening statement. We'll move on to Mr. Rodriguez. You have 2 minutes up to that for your opening statement. Anthony?
Mr. Rodriguez is not on.
He's not with us. Okay. All righty. Mr. Sanchez, I saw you present earlier during the course of the evening, so I believe you're there and you have the floor.
He's not on either.
Oh, Mr. Sanchez is not with us either. Okay, I tell you what then, for District 2, Ms. Bueno and Ms. Corey, you all can discuss these matters. The first one up, and Ms. Corey, you will be able to go first on this question that I have for you. And my questions are really based on things that residents are really concerned about that impact them and are the biggest types of things that they will base their decisions on. So the first thing here is skyrocketing rent prices and the housing crisis that we have here in Miami-Dade County, especially as we come out of the pandemic. So Ms. Corey, tell me, and you have 1 minute, how would you handle this, help abate foreclosures and the kinds of things that are impending for many people in our community?
There's a couple of things I would do. First, I would urge our state legislatures, which I wish Mr. Rodriguez was on since he's a state legislator, to discuss why they have not passed a law or anything to quench the raising the rent increases as much as they do. We really need to put a freeze on that. We also need to start thinking in high rises. I agreed with the Miami Herald's article about the that we need to start looking at maybe condensing some of our buildings and making them high rises a little higher to bring people, of course, with building requirements. And third, I really think that we need to start helping people get back on their feet. COVID has really taken in a lot of issues, and I feel strongly that as a community, we owe it to our fellow residents to work and try to come up with solutions to their rent and or homeowner home insurances.
Okay, Ms. Bueno, how would you handle this? And this is a crisis we have in front of us as we speak.
Right, it is a crisis. And one of the issues that it's government likes to tell us that they have a solution for us. Well, one of the things that they're currently doing is raising our property taxes. Property taxes are going up, and the people that are most affected by this are people on fixed incomes. That includes the elderly and the disabled. And so while government is telling us that they want to help us, our property taxes for non-homesteaded homes, and of course that includes everybody who rents, as you cannot rent out a homesteaded property, you must have, you cannot have the homestead exemption on it. So everybody who rents from somebody who does not have a homestead exemption, those rates are going to go up to 10% of the property value. Therefore, it's going to be a huge jump in the rental cost for people. So there are many ways we can lower the housing costs for people. And one of those is to get government to stop raising the property taxes and actually reverse them. Because what people don't understand, I believe at this moment, we have a $10 billion budget that the commission and the mayor just proposed. And that $10 billion, it doesn't get paid for by the federal government. It gets paid by us, the taxpayers. And so that's really a big area that we need to focus on. Yes, we need to do other things as well. But the biggest factor that is driving up these rental costs at the moment happens to be property taxes. And so that to me is a big concern, and I'd love to see that addressed. And then of course we need to also loosen some of the regulations in place so that people can use their homes to the full ability, including renting out rooms if they'd like to, as we used to. We used to have efficiencies in Miami-Dade County. We've made it harder for people to use their properties and be able to afford it. So I think that there's many things we can do, but the biggest issue for me, again, as I've mentioned, is the property taxes.
Okay, Ms. Bueno, on my next question for you, and you'll be the first one to answer here. And this follows the rent crisis, which we're dealing with, which is an immediate problem. But long-term in Miami-Dade County, as our population grows, affordable housing, how are you going to address that? What would be your recommendations so that down the road in 2026 and beyond by 2030, if you end up on the commission, that our community will not be facing this type of crisis?
Absolutely. And like I said, I think the first thing we need to do is make sure that people can build. What we have is a lack of inventory. There aren't enough homes that people can move into that are affordable. And one of the main issues, if you speak to these builders that are looking to create these homes, is that it takes about 2 years from the time they propose the building until they get the permits to start building. That is a travesty. How can we expect businesses to have a project that they can't even put a shovel into the ground for 2 years? We have a huge red tape burden on people who want to build. That is a big concern for me. In addition to that, we have a lot of policies in place. One of the reasons I decided to run was this issue that we give developers properties for $10. It's an amount that is just to show that they've given it. But they give these properties to builders to build low-income housing. We had a crisis recently. One of those properties, it was turned into a Wawa. So there's a lot, again, and I hate to keep harping on this issue, but there's a lot of corruption, a lot of builders that get favors from the commissioners. That doesn't help anyone within our community. It helps only those businesses that are paying the commissioners for, these type of services. And I can be more specific, but I realize that I have a very limited amount of time.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Corey, affordable housing and long-term, how are we going to manage this and handle it, make it better?
Well, I kind of disagree with Ms. Bueno a little bit. One of the things I'm really concerned about is how we build. We are allowing builders to build luxury homes all over, high rises and so forth, but we are not expecting them to build any affordable housing. So one of my proposals is to require all builders, all building permits to include requirements that each builder will have to build a percentage of affordable housing. We also need to start looking at our maps and taking properties that have been foreclosed or vacant for a long time and try to turn them into affordable housing. I used to live in Maryland when I worked with the federal government, and across the street from my house was an affordable housing homes. And what it is they incorporate all of the communities. So not only is it diversified, but it also is affordable for some to be in the all different areas. So that is one of the areas I'm really concerned about. I do have a concern about us building certain places that are not, especially in downtown. We can afford to do a lot of buildings and turn them into affordable housing. Unfortunately, the red tape, Ms. Bueno had stated, I agree with, that we need to overcome some of that red tape and move forward on some of the building permits much faster, but also cautiously, because we don't want another issue that happened with the building collapse.
Okay. With that, let me have one pause here and check with our officials there at the headquarters. I want to make sure that both of you are seeing the time warnings and that those are coming to you. Are you seeing those?
No, so I'm not.
I'm not either.
Okay. So back at the headquarters, you all work on that while we move forward to the next question so that we make sure that we have a fair and equal forum here with all of our candidates having the same amount of time. So while you all work on that, Ms. Corey, you have the next question. You mentioned this a little bit, I believe, in your opening statement about transportation and traffic here in Miami-Dade County. It's the one thing that we're all in unison with each other that we don't like. So what can we do to improve our commuting, which obviously affects businesses, affects attracting businesses and workers to our community? How do we handle this moving forward?
There are a couple of things we need to do. First, I really am a believer in rail. I really am disappointed that our legislative arms have not gotten funding down here to put up rail across the west and the south areas of Miami-Dade. But we also can do what other communities have done up north. They have regulated, they have a red light, yellow light kind of thing to go on highways to regulate how much traffic goes on at a time. And that is something we need to start looking at as a community. It happens different places and it will get the flow of traffic much faster. We need to also quit fixing the streets at every day. I remember getting my license at 16 and they were working on 826 and they're still working in 826. So we have just keep construction after construction that causes traffic jams over and over. So we need to look at that. We also need to look at better transportation with buses and with local community traffic that will move forward into the downtown areas, because a lot of people down south are not able to get from their home all the way downtown for any employment, services, and so forth. So we have to be more receptive to the public of those concerns.
Ms. Bueno, how do you get us out of the traffic?
Oh boy, great favorite topic of mine, actually. So two parts to this. First of all, I want everyone to understand that Miami-Dade County has a special budget for traffic issues. They've been collecting half a penny sales tax for 20 years now. We have over $4 billion that was collected that hasn't actually been used. So that's the number one. There's money for these projects. And number two is You'd be surprised that there's a lot of things that we can do without spending a whole lot of money. There's actually been some logistic studies on our bus system and our roadway systems that we haven't gotten access to. Miami-Dade County paid for them, but as far as I know, nobody's actually been able to look at them. So there are a lot of things. Our buses, for example, run on a constant time route. Anybody that knows logistics would know that you want them when you need them most, you need them running frequently, and then during the day when people don't ride, you would want it less. There are a lot of things we can do. Ms. Corey mentioned something about lights. You can also do, there's things that we can do with our lights to coordinate them better, especially in the direction of traffic during the day. And then of course we need to look at the rail. As I mentioned, there is money for rail and for other things. We just aren't using them appropriately.
Okay, and I take it that you got the alert concerning the time now.
Now I can.
Okay. Okay, I'm sure that's coming to you soon. Okay, Ms. Bueno, this next question for you up for us is about policing in our communities and community policing and improving the relations between our police department and Miami-Dade County Police has done an incredible job improving and is dedicated to community policing. However, there still are some gaps with some communities and their frank trust of the police and these types of things. How do we build these gaps? Because many of these neighborhoods where this mistrust exists are the very neighborhoods in our communities that need the police the most. So what are your ideas so that our community is safer in this realm?
Absolutely. And I think that this is a subject that is very important for everyone in Miami-Dade County, especially. Police is needed, or we need police services. We need safety for our communities. One of the things I'd like to see that can be accomplished is to actually give the police less work and therefore make it so that when people see them, they're maybe not as angry. A lot of the stuff that the police do, like writing tickets, for example, is more of a fundraising activity, not necessarily something that I feel would improve the police's work. So I'd like to see a little bit of a change in how we do a few things. But overall, I share that concern with a lot of my neighbors. Just yesterday, we were at a protest for a communist group that is here in Miami, and we had two protesters arrested for burning a communist flag, not a U.S. flag. So I share those concerns, and I would love to work with the police and improve the situation.
Ms. Corey.
Yes, sir. I have been very involved with the independent review panel to have complaints of law enforcement and to the county be raised and be done by a panel of civilians. So I'm really strong on that, but there are several other things that can be done. One, we need to start letting officers do their jobs and duties only. We need to remove, as a society, social work, mental health issues, and so forth from law enforcement, and have a joint effort with social workers and mental health issues that can be addressed in those forms. Law enforcement is not an expert in those fields, and they should not be dealing with those issues. But as a society, we started expecting a lot more of them. We also need to start at looking at some body cam videos and addressing some of the issues that are ongoing that could be prevented prior to a situation that could occur. So what I would like to see is maybe some of the law enforcement brass and some of the mental health and social workers combined together to look at body cam videos and look at some of the officers' treatments of people and address those upfront prior to these situations. We also have the Circle of Brotherhood, who has been very active of letting the community know some of the issues in law enforcement. I think it's important to work with the community and have them, boy, this is a little startling, and have them work on, I don't know how to.
No, we still hear you.
Oh, okay. I didn't know it came up and it didn't go away. Oh, yes. and then have them work together with the community by patrolling the communities on foot. We need to start seeing people one-on-one and addressing those issues up front as a community. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, Ms. Corey, just so now you have seen that, so you know at that moment, that's the time for you to cease your comment there.
Thank you.
Moving on forward, we've all seen the struggles that small business has been through during the pandemic and now coming out of the pandemic and moving forward. There's so many businesses who want workers, and I see signs from even McDonald's that we have a $500 bonus to come in here. What can the county do to help small businesses, especially mom and pop businesses, moving forward here in the coming weeks and months so that these businesses survive here in Miami-Dade County?
Who's starting?
No, Ms. Corey goes first on this question.
Okay, I feel strongly that I think we need to start addressing our salaries. Those people have to pay rent, they have to pay for their cars, home insurance, whatever they have to do. Our cost of living is skyrocketing. Second of all, I would like to see the county look and see if there's a way for small businesses to buy into the health insurances that the county has. I think that will help small businesses hire people. Now, I'm not real familiar with the regulations on that, but I think that if we can help as a community and a county to bringing in employees to buy into health insurance, that may eliminate some of the costs for businesses and increasing the ability for their salary increases would make a big difference. So those, and I hear the beep, so I'm going to conclude my comments. Thank you.
Ms. Bueno.
Yeah, so I completely disagree with Ms. Corey. As a small business owner myself, I can tell you that the best thing that the county can do is get out of our way. So in the past 2 years, when COVID hit, Miami-Dade County was closed down as opposed to Broward County, as opposed to the rest of Florida. Miami-Dade and Broward County closed down. And our small businesses were severely affected. Our restaurants, our bars, everything was shut down, but we had our big stores, Walmart, Target, all of them remained open. And so I can tell you that government has really hampered the small businesses especially. And what we need to do is get government out of the way. What I'm hearing Ms. Corey propose, it sounds great, but you cannot force businesses to pay more and then expect them to also pay more in salaries and whatnot. Mom and pop businesses are struggling and they deserve tax breaks on their property so that they can continue afloat. They deserve to be able to stay in business. We have depended on these businesses to create the Miami that we live in today, and to see how unfortunately they were treated again during this pandemic is especially not good at all. So I, as a business person, I have to severely disagree with what Ms. Corey said, and there's my time.
When it comes to working, and Ms. Bueno, you're first here. When it comes to working with our cities and municipalities across Miami-Dade County, what would you do to have good relationships with these communities and make sure that the funds that are coming from the county are effectively and most efficiently used to get to our residents? And Ms. Bueno, you're up first.
Thank you so much. So I have a plan to immediately, if I win this office, start meeting with every single one of the departments across the board. And that includes not only our services, but also the counties and such, because we need to have those relationships. That's the only way. You can't build a relationship by email or by phoning it in. And I intend to do the work. I know it's something that Susan and I both agree with, which is that we are the candidates who are always here, who are very approachable, who are seen by our residents. I'm always in front of the commissioners. I go pretty often to these things. And so I just received something from Anthony Rodriguez, who's the other candidate, and he's been sending these out to people across the county consistently every single week or across this district. And he hasn't been available for example, this interview and whatnot. So it's really hard to build relationships when you're not there.
Ms. Corey.
I agree 100% with Ms. Bueno, but I also feel strongly that we need to be actively involved with our associations, with our communities. I think it's important to not only be seen and heard, but to actually take action. And I think sometimes we forget that residents really do need you out there. This is why this position is so important to the community. You deal with the potholes, you deal with the sidewalks, you deal with all those little things that are not big deal, but they are to a homeowner. So I think being visible into the community, reaching out with businesses and making sure that there is a combined areas, especially with cities. Now, fortunately for us, or unfortunately, we don't have any cities, municipalities in District 10. However, I think it is important to start reaching out to all of them, because you never know when you need each other to work together. Thank you.
For each of you, you'll get 1 minute and a closing statement here. And Ms. Corey, since you went first due to the technical issue that we had on the closing statement, Ms. Bueno, you will go first. So for your final point, why should the residents of District 10 decide to put you in office?
Thank you so much. So I would be very humbled if the residents of District 10 chose me to represent them. Particularly, I think I would be a really good candidate for this job because, as I mentioned, I do have the experience in running a large organization. And what is government if not a very large organization? Of course, this will be one bigger than I've ever run, but it's also bigger than anyone on this panel has ever run. So, I mean, I'm asking for their support. And I believe that I'm the best person for this role because I've already proven that I can accomplish it. I've met with the neighbors and fought against the forced incorporation of Westchester. I also met with the neighbors and fought the Bitcoin coming and bringing a Cuban party member from coming and speaking at the Bitcoin conference. So, I mean, there's been a lot of things in the community that I have not only worked to do, but actually accomplished. As I mentioned, I've gone before the commissioners many times, and the reason we don't accomplish much there, unfortunately, has to do with the amount of contributions. I have not taken those contributions. I have been funded primarily by small amounts from residents in our community and outside that believe in what I'm trying to do, which is to bring open transparency to the commission and make it accessible to everyone. The commission meetings now are difficult to understand. People feel intimidated, overwhelmed by going. And my mission is to make sure that everybody has a voice. I am here to represent the citizens of District 10 and Miami-Dade County, and I would be humbled by your vote, or by the opportunity to earn your vote as well. Thank you so much.
Okay, Martha Bueno and Susan Corey, both candidates in District 10. Thank you very much for joining us here with the League of Cities tonight, and the best to both of you.
Can I do a closing, please?
Oh, you're up next for your closing.
It's okay. I just wanted to make sure I had an opportunity to close.
No, you're entitled to your 1 minute. And if you thought my previous statement meant that we were done with you, no.
That's okay. I just wanted that. I believe that I'm one of the best candidates and probably the strongest in this race for a couple of reasons. One, that I have experience working with legislatures in the federal, state, and local levels. I have worked across the county with communities, with organizations to move legislation forward, and it takes working together and jointly passing the regulations to actually do something. This whole nonsense of trying to be partisan or trying to hold on to something because you want to control it is just wrong. The community residents deserve a representative that will actually be there for them and will work hard for their issues. And I am a fighter. I will fight for every member in my community, no matter where you come from and where you are. And I respectfully request and ask for each voter to vote for me. Thank you. I'll try to make it short.
And you did. And thank you very much. And so now that we've heard from the two candidates who were with us tonight, we obviously encourage everyone in District 10 to, whether that's a mail-in ballot, whether that's early voting that starts on Saturday the 13th, or election day on the 23rd to make sure that their voices are heard from the candidates there in District 10. And thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Yes. Okay, moving on now, we're going to move on to district number 12 in West Miami-Dade County. And I believe we have Mr. J.C. Bermudez, who is a candidate in that district. We do want to let those of you online know that we reached out to the other candidate in this race, Sophia Lakaya, at the multiple locations and listings that she had as her official residence and official contact information from the Miami-Dade County Board of Elections in Doral there. And we did not hear back from her, but we certainly want those of you listening and watching to know that the League of Cities did reach out to this candidate, Ms. Lacayo, but did not hear back from her. With that said, Mr. Bermudez, I believe you heard the rules and regulations here, so you'll have 2 minutes to make your opening statement as to why the voters in District 12 should put you on the Miami-Dade County Commission.
Well, first of all, thank you, Willard, to you and the league for the opportunity to be here today with you and with those that are watching. There are many reasons I feel that I'm the best candidate for this race, but number one, and most importantly, I think, is the history we've had in starting the city from scratch as the first mayor, the experience that I gained from being able to not only help start the city, but then move in the right direction to deal with the federal government, the state government, and the county, I think has prepared me to be able to understand the key issues that impact not only District 12, but the county as a whole. As you know, when we started as a city, we had a very important issue with the county, two important issues which we had to fight for and impacted other municipalities. One was the elimination of the mitigation payment, which was really an unfair tax to three municipalities, not only Doral, but also Miami Lakes and Palmetto Bay. And the other one was getting the fair share of the half-penny sales tax for the newer cities, which included Miami Gardens and Doral and Color Bay. So over the years, we've learned that there are ways that we can try to improve the county and also make a difference. And I believe that that experience, combined with the record of ethics and transparency, prepares me to be the best candidate to represent District 12 on the Miami-Dade County Commission.
And with that said, Mr. Bermudez, when this rental crisis that we're dealing with across all of Miami-Dade County and certainly in District 12, how do we cope with this, abate and mitigate the foreclosures that people can be looking at here in pending?
I think that, the foreclosure aspect of it is something that the county can, at a limited level, impact by certainly giving, in some instances, limiting the opportunity for foreclosures to be moving forward on people that may not be able to make their payments on time. But there's only a limit of time for that. The real answer to that is to do many other things that in the short and long term will help with this crisis. And that includes important issues like dealing with affordable housing, making sure we move forward on transit-oriented development, and doing a number of other things, including some of the grants to smaller businesses. There are some federal dollars, and I think what the county did recently, which included, by the way, eliminating impact fees for developers, may be a step in the right direction to lower the cost in the long direction. But this is not going to be an easy fix. It's not done overnight.
Okay, and to that point, what are your long-term ideas about this to increase the pool of affordable housing units in the county?
I think that the most important thing to increase the pool is to make the ability to build more efficient and more effective. As I mentioned before, I think it's a step in the right direction to eliminate or restrict some of these impact fees if the developer is committed to building affordable housing. And that's a big if, but you got to hold the developers' feet to the fire and make sure they do that. I think that there's a number of other things that we can do, including incentivizing the developers and making the streamlining of permitting much more effective. That's something that for a long time, the cost of land is too expensive, Willard, today in Dade County, to make it feasible for developers to effectively build affordable housing unless you take other incentives to make sure that those developers take those proper steps. And to do that, you really have to take into account the fact that those incentives have to be tied into a commitment to make those units affordable. And by the way, transit-oriented development, which is something that's being worked on already by the commission, and the League of Cities has played a great role in making sure that the city's rights are respected when it comes to that, is also a critical part of that solution. If we are going to build public transit, then we need to build housing by it, and part of that housing should be affordable.
Okay. Mr. Bermudez, you just talked about transit. So moving to that, especially in this district in West Miami-Dade County, many of the residents there have employment in downtown Miami, sit on the airport expressway for a considerable time period, especially now with the construction going by the Gersten building there and the new bridge. How do we improve this so that our economy can continue to grow? We can attract businesses from other places to locate here, and they don't consider transportation an impediment.
You know, that's a key issue, and we got to start by acknowledging that transit and traffic, while they are not the same thing, are actually both connected. As far as the East-West corridor is concerned, we're actually talking about that now. I am the vice chair of the Transportation Planning Organization of Miami-Dade County. I've been lucky enough to be in that position for the last 2 years. And we've had to deal with different corridors, the North Corridor first, the South Corridor second, and now we're in the process of looking at the East-West corridor. There are some of the solutions are what we talked about before, creating some transit-oriented development maybe in the area. But for those who need to get from Kendall or West Dade downtown, we need to, as you said, get them there effectively and efficiently. Light rail is an option, but it's not a viable option at this point. So our options are, for example, what the county has recently done, the bus depot that was built at the Dolphin Mall stop. But for that to work, and I knocked on the door of a resident recently, and there has to be bus service, bus rapid transit, which is consistent, and particularly during peak hours. This resident in particular told me, hey, if I have to wait 30 minutes to get downtown to my job, that's too long. At peak hours, we should have a little bit more effective transportation. There should be stops every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes. And that's a very valid point.
Okay. Mayor Bermudez, Miami-Dade County, located the police department headquarters there in Doral, where you are the mayor at this point. They've done a tremendous outreach for a considerable time period to try to improve community policing relations in communities. How do we bridge some of these gaps in the neighborhoods where they actually need police the most?
Yeah, I think a great part of that is communication. Community-based policing is exactly that, community-based policing. Number one, you have to be able to have the communications with that community. Number two, they have to have confidence that the police are there to do what they're supposed to do, to protect and serve. I'm lucky enough to be endorsed and supported by the Police Benevolence Association. I believe in body cameras. We were one of the first cities to actually do that in Miami-Dade County. I believe also in making sure that those communities understand that your police has the proper training to deal with situations that could lead to some serious conflicts. And training of the officers is critical for that. I am a big supporter of the police. You know, I do believe that we need to make sure, and we're lucky in Miami-Dade County that we've had a very open relationship with Metro-Dade Police, and they have focused on community policing. They also on the cameras, but also on the proper training. Proper training is critical.
Okay. And when it comes to our businesses and small businesses, you heard me ask the District 10 candidates about businesses who were able to survive the pandemic, but now they can't find the people to have enough in their restaurant for the customers who are coming at their door. What can we do? And what can the county do and commission do specifically?
That's a great question, and that's a complicated one because we need to get people to actually apply for some of these jobs that are out there. In Doral, we were lucky enough to go ahead and provide about $1.5 million in funds from which we received from the federal government to the small businesses directly in our city. And I think that small businesses, we have the mom and pop grants program, which could be strengthened and made more viable for these businesses, with the understanding that that's going to be used to try to make sure that the hiring of individuals is one of the, let's call it, I'm not going to say a condition, but one of the precursors to making sure that we can get people back to work. I think in part of this, Willard, is the economic situation that we're in. For a while, There's been a lot of people that were not necessarily needed to work because they were receiving certain funds. As time goes on, in particular, unfortunately, with some of the reality that we have today, I think we'll see a change with some individuals seeking to get back to work.
Okay. And when it comes to working with the county, from your current experience on this side of it, receiving county funds, how would you handle it if you're successful in this campaign on the other side of making sure that municipalities get what they need?
That's a great question. I have had the luck of being the president of this organization now on 2 occasions. I think it's important to have communication. I think for the first time in the history of Miami-Dade County, if I get elected, we'll have 3 former presidents who will actually sit on that county commission. That has never happened before. And one of the things that is important for that relationship is to make sure that the cities are respected. More than half of the people in Miami-Dade County live in the unincorporated areas. And my commitment as the founding mayor of the city, that in many instances was on the other side, is to make sure that cities are heard as we move forward by Miami-Dade County.
Okay. Mayor Bermudez, you have 1 minute for a closing remark as to why people from District 12 should move you from your current position downtown to Government Center.
Well, thank you very much. And, I'm running on my record. I think my record speaks for itself. I ask the public to consider that a record of honesty, transparency, effectiveness, and efficiency. I would like to take some of these things, not only to District 12, but to Miami-Dade County. I think we live in a wonderful place, one of the best places in the United States, but there are things that we can do better, and we've touched upon some of those. But we need to do that from the perspective of being open, transparent, ethical, and effective. I look forward to representing the residents of District 12 and Miami-Dade County. And I want to say one other thing, even though I would represent District 12, that I will not shy away from taking on some of the bigger issues that impact Miami-Dade County as a whole. And I hope that that's the mentality of my colleagues, the new ones coming in and the ones that are there. Because in order for us to move forward, we all have to work together on the issues that impact all of us. Okay.
Mayor Bermudez, thank you for your time tonight with the League of Cities. We also want to let our audience know again that we did reach out to your opponent, Ms. Lacayo, at her official contact information with the elections officials, but did not hear back from her. And thank you very much. And we encourage everyone in District 12 to either vote by mail, vote in the early voting starting on Saturday the 13th, or go to the polls on Election Day the 23rd. And Mayor Bermudez, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we want to move on now to District 8. And we will move forward. We have 3 candidates from District 8, Alicia Arroyo, Karen Baez-Wallace, and Danielle Cohen Higgins. And are they present and up with us on the forum at this point?
Good evening, I'm present.
Hi there.
Hi.
Thank you all for being with us tonight. And we are going to go in alphabetical order again here. So Alicia will be first with an opening statement that will go for 2 minutes.
Ms. Arellano is not on.
Ms. Arellano is not on. Okay. So Ms. Baez-Wallace will be the first to go here. You have 2 minutes to let the voters and those with us tonight in District 8 know why you are the person that they should select to represent them.
Thank you for having me, Lieutenant Colonel Shepard. It's really a pleasure to have an opportunity to be here and on this forum. My name is Karen Baez-Wallace. I'm your candidate for Miami-Dade County Commissioner for District 8, and I'm number 115 on your ballot. My experience over the past 26 years as a registered nurse has made me uniquely qualified and prepared to face the challenges as a commissioner. It matters to the footprint and to the development, not only within our district, but also within our county, who you select as your next county commissioner. As a former director of an ER and trauma center within District 8, I have not only proven my ability to lead, but has been during the most difficult times that our county has faced. My service has been unwavering. I heard you. And during your most times of needs, I have been there for you. Integrity and transparency are really the cornerstones of matter during service. So I thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to the questions during this forum.
Okay, great. And thanks for being with us. Ms. Colin Higgins, your opening statement as to why the voters in District 8 should select you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shepard. It really is a pleasure to be with you this evening, and I want to thank the League of Cities for hosting this important forum, and to all of the residents of Miami-Dade County that are tuning in this evening. I am running because I am born and raised in this community. I am a proud product of Miami-Dade County Public Schools. I was born at Jackson Hospital, and I live the issues that are most important to the residents of District 8. And the fact is that the American dream is becoming far more difficult to achieve. And what do I mean by that? I have friends and residents that have postgraduate degrees that are making decent salaries that can't afford a place to live in this county. I have residents in my community that can't reverse out of their driveways to get to work. I have residents that drive 9 miles in the morning, and that commute takes over an hour and 15 minutes. I have residents that take their boats out to our marinas but can't get them in the water. And once they're in the water, what do they see? They see fish kills. I have residents in District 8 that have to wait more than 20 minutes for law enforcement to arrive at their homes when they dial 911. These are core issues, the issues that keep us up at night. These are issues I've addressed as a county commissioner, and I will continue to fight for moving forward for the next 4 years. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Okay, Ms. Colin Higgins, you will answer the first question here and be up first. And that deals with what is impacting our county immediately, and that is this rent crisis and skyrocketing rents. What are your ideas to help residents in your district to be able to stay in their properties?
Absolutely. We are in the middle of a rent crisis, and I have addressed this already serving on the dais by supporting waiving impact fees for the development of affordable housing units. In addition, we have to look at infill housing opportunities and reimagine the way that properties are being used currently in Dade County, including properties owned by the government. Additionally, I've spearheaded initiatives regarding modular housing. What is this? These are prefabricated homes that are delivered at a fraction of the cost and at a fraction of the time frame that are hurricane proof and look just like every other home. I am looking forward to exploring modular housing in Miami-Dade County so that our hardworking teachers and law enforcement officers and entry-level young people can achieve the American dream by buying their first home.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Biswallis, how do we handle this so that people have a place to live and do it in an affordable fashion?
Well, much to what Ms. Higgins had said, it's true. Mitigating the impact fees is really a big help so that we can pass on those savings on to the owners that really want to purchase their own home. Additionally, I believe that what the county did, and probably not decreasing the tax exemption down to 2% or 3% so that we can pass on savings to the homeowners, would have gone a long way as well to help with the skyrocketing rental fees. Unfortunately, as we know that property values have gone up, so will our taxes. And so on those non-homesteaded homes, that tax, if you will, that tax revenue, or that alleviating that impact from the renters is not going to be there. So it would have been nice to have seen that decrease in our tax impact so that we can pass that on to our fixed income and our renters.
Okay, and to this point, and you're up again first on this next follow-up with this. What do we do long-term about this to provide affordable housing so we don't end up where we are today with this situation?
Well, I mean, we have a huge budget here within Miami-Dade County, and what we are seeing are homes that are going up. We're seeing a lot of apartments down here within the southern end of the county, and a lot of those are not for sale, they're for lease. And I would like to be able to provide services for those first-time homeowners that can have a way to home ownership. Also, just because you're not making a six-figure income doesn't mean that you don't have steady income. And we do need to allow everybody to have an opportunity to own a piece of the rock. So allowing home ownership within District 8, I think, is important. Again, the taxes and maybe bringing back the taxes and trimming some of the fat and some of the expenses within the county right now in our current environment, in our current financial environment as a country, I think would have been important.
Ms. Higgins, long-term, how do we have affordable housing in our county? So this type of crisis is not something that either one of you, whichever one of you is elected 4 years and 8 years down the road still is coping with this.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Miami-Dade County is a popular place. A lot of people are moving here. And so what we're seeing is a direct response to the pandemic that we just came out of. Where here in Florida, everybody wanted to move. And as a result of the increase in population, the housing prices have skyrocketed. I don't anticipate that that will continue into the future for the next 10 or 20 years. That's a very time-specific thing. But in the immediate, we have to increase inventory. This is a supply and a demand issue, which is what I mentioned earlier regarding looking at infill, reimagining government properties to see what we can produce by way of affordable housing, and looking at unconditional ways of developing these properties. There are less expensive alternatives to development, i.e. modular homes, where we can get products to our residents in the community much faster and much cheaper. And we have to look at those as viable options so that we can have more residents being able to afford to live here and not having to move to Monroe and to Broward County in order to buy their first home.
Ms. Colin Higgins, how do we address the traffic? And I'll just say what some people say to me, many people, the nightmare that they are dealing with now that they didn't deal with years in the past, and its impact upon their jobs, their lifestyle, their time with their families. How can we address this in the county to make sure that people can commute in a reasonable time?
You know, with the population growth that we have seen in Miami-Dade County, we are lacking in infrastructure in a lot of ways. And the number one example of that is our transportation system. With a population as large as we have in this county at 3 million, we should have a robust and exemplary public transportation system. And unfortunately, we do not. We have bus stops that currently are still poles. In 100-degree heat and rain and humidity, nobody is going to take our public transportation if they have to stand next to a pole. So we have to sit in the shoes of the residents and say, why aren't our residents taking public transportation more? Since 2012, there has been a steady decline in the use of our public transportation in Miami-Dade County. We have to address the why. Is it unsafe? Is it unpopular? All of those issues need to be addressed by way of a public relations campaign, increasing safety on our busway, but we have to get more people using our transportation system in Miami-Dade County to support the growth. Otherwise, we're going to continue to sit in our cars and be stuck in traffic for hours on end of day, which is unbearable to so many residents, including myself and most of the residents in District 8.
Hey, Ms. Biswallis, how do we get out of our vehicles and get to our jobs faster?
Well, I mean, Ms. Higgins touched upon a video that I had done recently. I mean, with the heat index above 100, having these poles, as she mentioned, is really not incentivizing the utilization of public transit. I mean, you drive down on a lot of our bus stops and people are just standing there in the heat. It's not safe. They're close proximity within the cars that are speeding by. We need to really focus on incentivizing public transportation, either partnering up with our small businesses that we can give some sort of an incentive to them, decreasing the fares on the bus stops, whatever it is. We need to really sit down and see why people are not utilizing our public transportation. We are a car-centric community, and we have to see how we can kind of break that mold and help them use public transportation a lot more. It is a parking lot. When I worked at Jackson, and I worked at Jackson at Trauma Center for many years, my mom would call me, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm in my parking lot." That parking lot was 836. And it's really troubling that people are spending so much time in their cars instead of with their families, which is really what they want to do. So my incentive is really live, play, work. And that's to be able to live and play near your work so that we're not sitting in our cars, but we're really enjoying those moments that are important to us. And that's our time with our family.
Ms. Bias, when it comes to community policing, what are your ideas to bridge some of these gaps? The Miami-Dade County Police Department has focused on community policing, placing officers in these areas to try to improve relations. What are your thoughts about these neighborhoods where these gaps need to be built and bridged? And many times these are the places that need our police officers the most.
You know, Mr. Scott, I have such an intimate understanding of what our police are really going through. And not only that, what the residents of those communities are being affected by violence have. I, as the director of a trauma center, and really over the last 26 years, my entire career has been emergency and trauma. I really have seen what those communities go through. There's nothing more difficult than to hold the hand of a parent and tell them that their child is dead. However, we do need police and we need them in these districts. And I do believe that communication is really what's going to be our key and power to bridging these breakdowns. When we have consistent police officers involved in the community, showing the community that they're involved in their enrichment, in their betterment, in their success, those relationships are formed. We also need to have the possibility of addressing social work and mental health partnered up with police so that when the calls that are coming out are not violent in nature, but maybe in psychological issues, we can have either a social worker or a mental health professional available so that the police officer can reference their specialty. But we do have to build these relationships, and by having a dedicated community workforce or police force, I believe is key to that.
Ms. Colin Higgins, what are your thoughts on building and bridging this gap?
Yeah, and thank you for this important question. And I'm proud to have the support of our Police Benevolent Association, because community policing is how Miami-Dade County polices. And I thank Director Freddie Ramirez for really sticking to that. Just 2 weekends ago, we were out in South Miami-Dade marching with our community on issues that are very important to it. You know, listen, I'm the daughter of immigrants. I lived in Jamaica when I was a very little girl, and I remember distinctly getting, having my father have to respond to people coming to our house trying to rob us because there was no 911. If you dialed it, you were lucky if someone showed up in 30 minutes. We can never take the importance of our law enforcement for granted. And when our community gets to know our police officers, when community policing is active, it's engaged, and our community gets to know our officers, and I'm speaking about Miami-Dade County. I can't speak to other parts of the country, but in Miami-Dade County, our officers are dedicated to getting to know the residents of their communities. And that is what helps bridge the gap: communication, and a consistent relationship building with our law enforcement officers.
Okay, Ms. Higgins, thank you very much. When it comes to our small businesses and their survival, and hopefully them thriving moving forward here, as I said earlier, when we all drive by locations where we see bonus signs, help wanted, it's virtually no place you walk into as a restaurant that they say they're not looking for people. What can the county do, and what would you do on the commission going forward to try to help these small businesses not only survive, but thrive and get the people they need to work with them?
Is that for me?
Yes, you get to go first.
Yes, thank you so much. And, I have a mom and pop small business grant program that we do every year. And we just opened the second Small Business Academy in South Dade and District 8. This allows our small businesses at no charge to them to connect to resources during a 7-week training program. And they get a certificate. We're going into cohort number 2, where they're able to learn the skills to survive not only the pandemic, but thrive afterwards. Regarding the workforce issue, you are spot on. Our small businesses are unable to hire the labor that they need in order to get the job done. We need to have job fairs. We need to be reaching out to the residents and making the connections and being more active as government officials to help our small businesses connect to the people that they need. Because it's unbelievable that we're in this environment where there are so many jobs, but not enough people acquiring them. So job fairs is a perfect example, and being the voice of these small businesses. I've been a small business owner for the last 13 years. I know this struggle firsthand. We at the government level can partner with our small businesses more, whether it's mom and pop small business grants, small business academies, both of which I've done, and small business fairs to help connect our small businesses with the talent and the labor pool that they so desperately need.
Ms. Biswallis, what about these small businesses and the assistance they need to stay afloat?
The mom and pop grant is absolutely a wonderful opportunity for small businesses. I have been to a lot of businesses within District 8, and they have consistently complained about the fact how difficult it is to get into these opportunities. And I believe and Ms. Higgins pressed to that need to have more presence within the community, having more community outreach. And that's really the purpose of our commissioners, to be there and be able to communicate with our small businesses and let them know what resources are available. There's a current print shop that I actually went to have them service my shirts. And she says, we've been applying and we just can't get to it. It's very difficult for us to get that information, but we need to keep their doors open, and they're really the backbone of our community. Big box companies did very well throughout the pandemic. It was a small business owner that really suffers. So we need to be able to support them and keep them alive, particularly down in the Homestead area and out in the Redlands. They provide a lot of food services. So we need to give those grants to them. I'm sorry that I went over.
No problem. Ms. Baez, you are up here for our next question concerning the relationships with our municipalities that are receive funds, obviously, from the commission, and having good relationships with them and making sure that the monies from the commission and the county are effectively used. What are your ideas about making sure that the administrative part of this basically doesn't gobble up what is headed to the cities and municipalities?
Thank you for that question. And having good relationships with our municipalities within the cities that we have within District 8, Palmetto Bay, Cutler Bay, down in Homestead is so important. And if our commissioner cannot have a good relationship with those municipalities, then it is concerning whether or not they'll be altruistic in making sure the services get out there. We need to have frequent meetings with them, be able to speak to them and listen to what these municipalities are saying about their constituents and the people that are within that district. Palmetto Bay, Cutler Bay, all of them have very specific needs and specific concerns. And I do believe that either community councils and the actual mayors of those cities have the pulse and know what's going on with their constituents. So the commissioner really needs to be able to partner up with them and see how the commissioner can serve them.
Okay, Ms. Colin Higgins.
Yeah, I think the relationship with our 34 municipalities here in Miami-Dade County is a very important one. We have to work together to solve the issues that are important to all of us. And I'm very proud of the relationship that I have with the 3 municipalities in District 8, Palmetto Bay, Cutler Bay, and Homestead. I regularly attend meetings. I constantly communicate with their mayors to be plugged in. And in fact, we're very proactive in reaching out to our mayors when there are agenda items coming up that are important to those municipalities to say, hey, what are your thoughts? That communication is critical. And there are a number of important agenda items coming before us on the board in the very, very near future that are going to affect our municipalities. And so, yes, it is incumbent upon the commissioners to reach out to those municipalities, keep the lines of communication open, and keep the relationships very, very strong. So obviously the commission can be an accurate and an aggressive representative for the municipalities that they represent.
Okay, time for our closing statements from both of you, where you have 1 minute each. And Ms. Higgins, you're first.
Thank you again for this incredible opportunity. My name is Danielle. I have the proud pleasure of serving as your county commissioner for District 8, and I would humbly ask for your vote and support to continue doing the work for another 4 years. In only 18 months on the dais, I have been able to deliver real and actual results. My record speaks for itself, and to the extent that the residents of District 8 want someone who lives the issues, not someone who just talks about the issues, someone who shows up and has been showing up for years, who has been a present and a consistent figure, and someone that they know because of a proven record will work extremely hard for them. I am the candidate for them. Punch 116 on August 23rd. Early voting starts August 8th. Mail-in ballots are already in our mailboxes. Danielle Colin Higgins for Miami-Dade County District 8. Thank you again so much for this incredible opportunity.
Ms. Baez.
Thank you so much once again to you, Mr. Shepard, and to the League of Cities. My name is Karen Biswallis. I am your candidate for Miami-Dade County District 8. Please punch number 115. I have been a nurse. I have been serving our community for the last 26 years. I have been present during the most difficult of times. Thank you so much for the opportunity. This is really a once in a lifetime to kind of have a healthcare worker on the dais. I do have a proven track record as a leader, and I'm here to serve our community for the rest of the 4 years that this position has. Thank you again.
Okay, thanks to both of you all for joining us here at the League of Cities tonight. And again, we encourage everyone in District 8 to either vote by mail, vote early starting on the 13th of August, or vote on Election Day. And a huge issue whenever I am down in your communities, and I will jokingly say to you, if the 3 of us put on our sneakers, we can drive from your district, or we can run from your district to the government center quicker than many people drive on a single day. So that's a huge challenge for those of you representing our community in that area. And thank you very much to both of you. The best to you.
Take
Thank
care.
you, Mr. Shepard.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we're going to move on now to District 6, where there are 4 candidates, and they will each get 2 minutes, those of them that are with us, to have their opening statements. And we will do this in alphabetical order, and we will start out with Kevin Mario Cabrera. Mr. Cabrera, if you're with us.
He's not with us tonight.
Okay, next in line is Mr. Fernandez for District 6. Is Mr. Fernandez with us?
No, he's not here.
No. Okay, Mr. Fors, George Fors.
Present, thank you.
Present. Okay, 2 minutes for your opening statement to the voters of District 6.
Is that me, Willard?
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't sure who else was on here. Good evening. Thank you to the League for organizing this forum. I'm George Force, and I'm currently a city commissioner for the city of Coral Gables. By day, I'm an attorney, and my practice focuses on business and real estate litigation. It has never involved any lobbying or government affairs, so my career and my role as an elected official are completely independent of each other. I come to the county commission with zero conflicts of interest. I'm also a husband, a father of 3 little girls. I've lived in this district for over 20 years. I work here, and my wife and I are raising our family here. My interest in government revolves around the local issues that affect our community, quality of life, and future viability. In 2019, I ran for city commission to protect and improve my neighborhood, and my decision to run for county commission comes from the same place, ensuring a more vibrant future for our local community. My platform centers around family. I pride myself on being a voice of reason, and I have always been committed to logical and rational thinking. But my analysis always begins and ends with our families and how the decisions we make as elected officials affect them.
Okay, thank you very much. Is Mr. Vasquez with us?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hi, Mr. Vasquez. Good evening, Victor, to you and your opening statement to the residents of District 6.
Thank you all for hosting this conversation and to all the residents of District 6. Good evening. I'm Victor Vasquez. I'm a candidate for District 6 County Commission seat. I am currently a sitting councilman in Miami Springs. I am, as you are, a veteran of the Air Force and a patriot. And from that experience, I learned commitment and planning and being decisive. And I have been working in the public and private sphere for many, many years. I've had much experience working with private and public projects in university levels, building things with communities where you needed a lot of partnership to be involved. You know, some people run for office to be something. Some people run for office to do something. Unfortunately, those that want to be something is the larger group. I want to do something. And I'm here because I want to make the county commission transformative. I believe not only in the immediate issues that we have to deal with, but we need to look long-term, 25 years down the road, and make sure that we have plans. We understand the problems in the county. We don't have enough plans. And that's what I bring to the table.
Okay, Mr. Vasquez, you will receive the first question first here, and it deals with the rent crisis in our neighborhoods, and people are seeing skyrocketing rents. And what can we do to keep the constituents in District 6 in their homes and apartments?
Well, the first thing is that the rising prices in rents have to do with markets. And I think that we need to work with all of the interests involved in those who own properties, those who pay rent, to find ways to alleviate. We do have a lot of things that are that we can deal with. But the most important thing is that we're dealing with fluctuating markets. And we need to have all of the partners involved in real estate and home ownership and rental and the opportunities that people have to try to keep the rents at an affordable level, because we have a larger housing crisis, as you've mentioned before. And I think the county is in a wonderful position to be able to help all those homeowners and all those renters. And we do have protection for tenants and so forth. We need to try to balance all of those forces. And that's why I like to look at things in a more comprehensive manner.
Okay, Mr. Forrest, how do we handle this crisis?
Thank you. Without a doubt, it's a crisis. Not only is it a crisis, but in my view, it's an emergency situation. I think the answer to the skyrocketing cost of housing is simple but difficult. Simple in the sense that there's one way to combat it, and that's an increase in inventory. We need more inventory and we need it faster. Now, because it's an emergency, we can't just look at the long-term plan to add more inventory and bring down pricing. We have to look at immediate bridges that can carry us over in the interim. In terms of long-term housing, we have to make the permit process quicker, speedier, and implement true concurrent review. In the immediate future, we need to explore and give support to programs, some of which are already being discussed, to convert existing housing in the county into immediately workforce available housing. This way we can avoid folks going north or south and leaving our community because they simply cannot afford to live here.
Okay. Mr. Forrest, to that long term, how do we deal with this so that we're not facing this crisis if you're elected towards the end of your term, that we're still staring this in the face?
We need to make it easier to build, Willard, and easier to build in different areas that are near transportation and different areas where the increase in volume or inventory is really going to make a difference in the bottom line of that pricing. I mean, I think some factors external will eventually start to stabilize, perhaps such as the price of property insurance, hopefully, but we can't count on that. And when we increase inventory in housing, we need to do so in a fashion that doesn't require 2 years or 2.5 years of review, but a fashion that allows people to build quicker, sooner, so we can immediately start bringing that housing cost back the other way.
Mr. Vasquez, you talked about long-term planning there. What are your thoughts long-term so we're not facing this down the road?
I'm looking at the next 25 days and the next 25 years. We have one of the things that we failed to do, as Benjamin Franklin once told us, if you fail to plan, you're going to fail, right? So we need to look at our housing situation in a more comprehensive manner. The League of Cities have told us we're going to have another 1 million people move down here over the years. Where are we going to put them? So I think the housing issue has many parts to it, and we need to look at it in terms of a broader plan in which we involve construction, real estate, government, and so forth, to look at more broadly where can we build and what kind of housing can we build in different places. I know that we do this one application at a time, but if we don't look at this comprehensive, we're going to fail again.
Okay, to both of you, and Mr. Vasquez, you'll be up first here.
Yes.
Both of your cities, especially yours, Miami Springs, bordering one of my favorite places, which is Miami International Airport, and the Gables just south of there. Of course, a huge amount of traffic coming through on Northwest 36 and through the interstate, the airport expressway, and then south on US 1. How do we make sure that we don't lose businesses coming here? People are able to get to their work. Mr. Forrest, you talked about family being so important. And so people are at home with their families and not sitting in their cars throughout the course of the morning and the evening. And Mr. Vasquez, you're up first.
One of the problems that we have with all those cars is that 40 to 45% of emissions that we have in the county come from those cars. And I used to be one of those until I retired last year. So we need to look at how we improve our transportation. I'm a rail guy. I live a half a mile from a train station. I used to be able to drive there and leave my car, but what do I do when I get on the train? I used to teach at Kendall campus. How do I get to Kendall campus once I get off that train? That is the problem that we're looking at. How do we improve? Several folks have already talked about this. We've talked about this for many, many years. Commissioner Oliver has a project for this, but we have to do better at laying out a plan that works. But one of the most important factors is incentivizing people to leave their cars and get on public transportation. It doesn't work for most of us.
Mr. Forrest.
Willard, District 6 is a relatively long district from north to south if you compare it with kind of the general shape of other districts. To me, it's similar to Coral Gables, where we have about 750,000 vehicles cut through our city on a daily basis. This was pre-COVID. And we also have very congested parts of US 1 to deal with, in addition to the airport. I'm a big believer in rail, but rail not only going long distances from east to west or from north to south, but circulators, what they refer to as circulators, which is within those small cities, within Coral Gables, the West Miami area, the Miami Springs area, trolleys like the one we've implemented in Coral Gables, which has amazing ridership, and we just expanded to Saturdays so that once people are in the general vicinity, they don't feel the need to have a car to be able to go from one place to another and congest our arteries. One thing that I'm very interested in exploring is something we've already discussed in the city of Coral Gables, is a potential crossing on 57th Avenue and 42nd Avenue underground, under US 1. That alone, the studies have shown, can have a great impact, butterfly effect, not only in this immediate area, but miles to the north, south, east, and west.
Okay, thanks to both of you for that. We'll move on to community policing. Both of the police chiefs in your jurisdictions I know well, and outreach to their communities as much as they possible with the officers they have available to them. Mr. Forrest, what about bridging gaps as a county commissioner with other communities that may not have the relationships that your officers do with citizens now, but will be part of your responsibility going forward if you are elected, and the same to you, to Mr. Vasquez. And Mr. Forrest, you're up first.
So, Willard, I'm a big believer in community policing. I think it has tremendous benefits, not only for trust, the relationship of trust between residents and police and the government, but for safety of officers and the residents. When you have a dedicated unit which spends a certain amount of time in a certain area, gets to know the community, gains the trust of the community, they can more effectively fight crime. Now, cities like Miami Springs, for instance, and Coral Gables truly enjoy that benefit because we have our own police departments. My vision for District 6 would be to mimic that community municipal police force in our unincorporated areas so we can try to achieve the same benefits. Now, this is going to be an interesting measure to implement as we move towards the sheriff model that's been mandated by the state. We need to find a way to strike a balance where these unincorporated areas can benefit from this community policing that we enjoy within our cities, and so that Miami-Dade as a whole can benefit from community policing.
Mr. Vasquez, I see a lot of your officers there at the Circle coming in and out of the restaurants, the Cozy Corner, the other places along in there. How do you make that happen in our entire county?
One of my favorite spots. Well, look, I remember when community policing meant officers on the beat. I remember as a kid, everyone knew who the officers were. Well, it's been a long time since we've had that. But using the example of Miami Springs, and I assume the same thing with Coral Gables. And my wife is sitting over here. Her father was the police officer for 31 years. So I know a lot about this, but policing is tough enough as it is, right? It's serving and protecting people. And I feel for all the officers every day who have to go out there and do this, but we need this in every single community. But like any other professional, police officers need to be constantly trained and retrained on different modes of communications. Earlier, someone mentioned about social workers and so forth. Clearly, policing has become more complicated in the last 10 or 20 years. I believe in that model. I agree with Mr. Forrest on this. Of course, there's some dollars that are tied to this. And of course, the complication, and we still don't know what it's going to mean to have a new sheriff in town, if you will, because of the layering with the Miami-Dade County police force, which we have very good relations. Some time ago, we had problems in our hotels with human trafficking that required the coordination of lots of different levels of police force. But the community needs to know more what the police is doing, and the police need to know more what the expectation is of them on a day-to-day. It's a symbiotic relationship, and it's an important relationship for ongoing success.
Okay. Both of the areas that you currently represent have a significant number of small businesses, and especially restaurants. And we all know that they're looking for people. On the county-wide level, how can we help these small businesses make sure that they stay in business? And Mr. Vasquez, you're first.
So one of the things that I know from the small business owners that I know in Miami Springs and in West Miami and in other parts, one of the single most important complaints that they have expressed to me was how difficult it was for them to try to work with the county to get support during COVID, during times when they had to lay off employees. Some of them kept their businesses open by themselves. And I think that it's important. Day one, I want to go in there and make sure that we have that operational and working much better than it seems to have happened. Now, you mentioned Cozy Corner. Cozy Corner is fully employed, so I think they're doing a good job, but not every business is, and I want to be a voice for them. I was a small business owner once for 3 years. Of course, it didn't work out for me. I know how difficult it is, but I respect the people who are small businesses because they're the backbone of our economy in this country.
Mr. Forrest.
Willard, I recognize that small businesses are the lifeblood of Miami-Dade County and really of the country. I have maintained a very strong relationship with our small businesses here in the city of Coral Gables. Early on in the COVID pandemic, when we weren't really sure what it was going to be, if it was going to be the end of the world or not, frankly, and much to the anxiety of my wife, I was out on the streets talking with our residents, talking with our restaurants, talking with our retail spaces, trying to figure out with them how we were going to get through this. One thing we can do for sure, Willard, is stay out of their way to a certain degree. The less regulation we impose on them, the more they're able to thrive. But at the same time, we need to facilitate what they're trying to do. One of the most common complaints I hear from small businesses is that it's often difficult to gain permitting, either to open up a business or to make improvements to the business to adjust to the market and the taste of the eventual customer. We need to come up with programs that allow small business to adjust on the fly, whether that be increased outdoor seating, or whether that be an improvement to add a bar, or an improvement to add a additional area for an additional service throughout the day. These are things that we need to facilitate and enable for small businesses, and to allow them to do so nimbly.
And for both of you, and because of your current positions, I'm sure that you both have some strong feelings about this. When it comes to working with municipalities, the county commission and commissioners, and one of you from District 6 moving forward, how would you make sure that good relationships are there so that the funds coming from the county are effectively used in local municipalities and jurisdictions? And Councilor Forrest, you're up first.
Thank you. And you hit the nail on the head, Willard. I come from the city level of government. I understand the benefits of local government being most effective the closer that it is to the residents. This is something that I said from the very beginning of my campaign as I went city by city within District 6, which has some of the most cities of any other district, if not the most, speaking with the local elected officials, asking them what they need. I view cities and their local governments as an asset, not only to the county, but to the residents. Now, from the city perspective, where I still currently sit, we have a lot of cities in District 6 that provide a lot of services for their residents, and donate a lot of services to their residents without really receiving some of that money back. Mr. Vasquez's example of the hotels and the human trafficking issue and the way that was a drain on Miami Springs Police Department, but Miami-Dade Police Department essentially performing that job, but not getting any money in return for it, essentially diluting their presence in the rest of the city. These are examples, including waste disposal, water and sewer in some cities, services that cities provide for their residents, but still end up giving the same amount of money back to the county, even though they do this on their own. We need to make sure that some of this money goes back to the cities, who are the closest level of government to the residents, and facilitate them as an asset, not as an obstacle in county governments and regional planning.
Mr. Vasquez, I'm sure you have some strong feelings about this and how
I
it's impacted your community.
I absolutely do. And I wanted to add something to your question, because your premise was, how do we ensure that the county resources are being used properly by the cities? And I want to echo what Councilman Ford said. We also provide a lot of money to the county, right? We pay taxes to the county, we pay school taxes. And using that example of Miami Springs Police Force, 40% of the calls from Miami Springs, from the hotels, were coming to Miami Springs Police Force. In other words, we are substantiating the police service to the hotels. So, but being on the councilman side, I know how important it is to have a good relationship with the commissioners. And that's the kind of work that I'm going to be doing with all of the cities and the unincorporated areas. Just to give you one example, sorry, my time is up. But anyway, I would appreciate adding to this.
Okay, Mr. Vasquez, you're going to have the opportunity because we have our closing statements and you're up. So you have your minute to use it as you see fit.
I just wanted to add that when when Commissioner Oliver proposed the RTZs, it impacted a part of Miami Springs that is all single houses that circle around that Opelika station, the Okeechobee station. And we immediately contacted him, and he came to our meeting, the very next meeting we had, and we were able to have this conversation with him. So I understand, and I've seen it firsthand, how important it is to have this relationship between both the commissioners and the city council person. I'm a planner. I'm a visionary. I like to look at the next 5 years and the next 20 years. I'm going to county commission to help develop a long-term plan in addition to the short-term things that we need to do. If we don't plan, we're going to fail. We can't see all of these issues disconnected from one another. Traffic impacts our environment. Our environment impacts our health, and having a livable wage and a place to live, and also to be able to ensure our businesses that people want to invest, that they have clarity in what our ordinances are, so that they feel comfortable investing in our cities.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Forrest, your closing remarks for the voters in District 6.
Thank you, and thank you again to the forum for organizing this event, and Mr. Shepard for moderating it. In this race, I've been endorsed by Commissioner Rebecca Sosa, who has held this seat in District 6 for over 20 years, as well as police and fire, and the overwhelming majority of local leaders in our municipalities in this district, including various mayors of cities that lie within the district, as well as commissioners and councilmen and women. I haven't received that support and that recommendation because they pulled my name out of a hat. I have sat on a commission, and I've shown what type of commissioner I will be through action, not merely words. Geographically and substantively, District 6 is the spine of Miami-Dade County. That's how I view it. It's very special and unique, especially to me. It has an aging demographic, and we are now entering into what I believe will be a transformative time, not only for District 6, but in our county's history. As we usher that in, we'll be forced to make very important decisions, and it's critical that our aging population and our families are not left behind. I sincerely believe that I'm the most qualified to lead District 6 and do that job. I've shown that action, and I will not let them down, and I will always put the interests of our residents first, prioritizing quality of life, transparency, and accountability in local government. For that reason, I ask for the resident support and their vote on August 23rd. George Forrest, ballot number 112. Thank you to Mr. Vasquez, and again to the League of Cities.
Okay, thank you to both of you, and to add to Councilor Forrest, some people already have their mail-in ballots who are able to do that here pretty effectively tonight, and also the early voting starting on the 13th of August of this month. For both of you, when I first started out this evening, thanking all of the candidates for their devotion to our service and to our community. Both of you embody that. It was just invigorating to be able to listen to both of you and your commitment to our community. And thank you both for your service that you have done to our community so far and going forward. We're truly lucky to have the two gentlemen like you and our other candidates who have come forward to make this sacrifice away from their families to try to make our lives better. And I want you to know, just as a citizen of Miami-Dade County, we appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving forward now, we're going to go forward to District 2. And I am told that William, the clerk, is the one who is with us tonight from District 2. And William, are you there? Okay, do we have any of the candidates that were on District 2? Mr. Clark? No, I don't see Mr. Clark. So to the League of Cities, Mr. Cooper.
He's
Hello?
connected. Mr. Clark is connected. Is connected.
Oh, Mr. Clark? Mr. Clark, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Clark, I hear you, but I cannot see you. Are you on a phone, or are you in an area we can actually see you? because if you turn your camera on whatever device you're using, whether it be your computer, your tablet, or your phone, we would certainly like to do so.
All right, that should do it.
Ah, there we go. There we are. You're hiding your handsome face from us.
How you doing, Mr. Shepard?
I'm doing fantastic. For District 2, which covers much of North Miami-Dade County, we appreciate your time this evening. You're our sole candidate who is with us. You'll have 2 minutes for your opening statement, and then I have a list of questions for you. We want to let our audience know that we did reach out to all of the other candidates who are in this race in District 2, and Mr. Clark is the sole candidate who is with us on the forum tonight. So with that, Mr. Clark, why should the residents here in the North Miami area of Miami-Dade County decide to send you to City Hall, or County Hall, excuse me?
Well, my name is William D.C. Clark. I'm a lifelong resident of Miami-Dade County. I'm vying to become District 2 new commissioner using my combined experience as a Miami-Dade public school teacher, as an aircraft servicer for Eastern Airlines, for a drug rehabilitation counselor. I'm also a 28-year veteran for the Miami-Dade Fire Department as a fireman and paramedic. I'm a former bookstore owner of 13 years, Afro Books and Things. I'm a former alumni president of one of the area high schools. I'm president of iCare, Inner City Alumni for Responsible Education. And I am also currently the president of DCS Mentoring Program. I believe I'm the person amongst the other 6 of us in all, who can bring this community together to finally realize our political and economic strength. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm going to just call you the Renaissance man with all that you have done to serve all of us. And thank you.
Been around here, Mr. Shepard.
All righty, to that point, and you know well in these communities that you would be served if you're elected this position, there's a huge problem with people and their rents escalating beyond what they can afford. What would you do about it?
Well, I vow to join Mayor Carver in seeking rent control, even though technically the state of Florida eliminate any municipality for putting rent control on the front burner. But if there's a will, there's a way. So individuals who are having that problem, I will work with the mayor diligently to make sure we find a way to come up with a solution to curb that rent and to give you the break that you surely need at this time.
Okay, and long term, what would you do big picture so we don't end up in this type of situation again?
Well, long term, I would revisit the UDB, which is the Urban Development Corps, to see could we tweak the measures that they have on board right now, meaning that we may have to critique the density situation where we're building more high rises like in New York City and other parts of Call as opposed to single family homes. Maybe that will help. Another thing that I will also do is review how much property that the county has as its disposal to give to developers with incentives to build affordable housing as well as workforce housing. People talk about low income and affordable housing, but you have police, firemen, nurses, teachers who also need help in this area because their salary, even though it's a nice salary, is barely dissipated simply because the rent is going too high and they have to take care of their family as well. So we'll critique the land use and the land availability that the county has and revisit that urban boundary situation and see could we critique it to make it more palatable to all of the renters in Miami-Dade County.
And when it comes to not just renters, but homeowners as well, in the northern portion of the county here, people sitting in traffic on I-95, we see the bright line racing by and coming by up through these neighborhoods and have the Biscayne corridor. What are your thoughts about reducing our commuter times and public transportation?
Well, the bus and the rail systems seems to be the most viable options. In 2002, we instituted a half a penny tax to get that rail run from South Dade to the county line up north, but it stopped on 79th Street, went west to Hialeah. Now you got an appendage going east to Miami Beach. I think we need to revisit that situation, take it all the way to the north as it was originally planned, work with the federal government to come up with that $15 billion price tag and see what that we can get this done, and the sooner the better.
Okay. You talked about your time, long time, over 2 decades as the first responder. On the law enforcement side, the police chief, North Miami, Mr. Jariga, great program to outreach to our communities, others in this district here, District 2. Countywide, how would you take the types of things that have been done in North Miami and move them throughout the county to try to bridge some gaps in neighborhoods where that their relationship with the police could withstand some improvement?
Well, like the gentleman spoke prior to me, I came up with police, community policing. I knew the officers in my community. And as a former alumni president, when Miami Central was voted the worst school in Miami, in the state of Florida, actually, the state promised us the best superintendent, the best principal, the best teachers. So I would like to use that model, simply because we did turn it around using that model. We want the best police officers. We want those with a positive track records when dealing with other people to police our communities, have a healthy relationship with the residents. Listen, I've worked with police all my life. They're my brothers. So I understand how hard the job is. But the police department is like the fire department. It's a microcosm of greater society. You're gonna have your good, you're gonna have your bad. But so if you want the residents to get rid of those perpetrators who committed crime in the community, then I believe you're gonna have to do the same on the other side and get rid of those perpetrators who commit atrocities against the community. If we work together, I believe we can get this done.
Mr. Clark, throughout these neighborhoods on 125th Street, Dixie Highway, there's so many small businesses, and due to the demographics of these neighborhoods, really hit hard during the pandemic. A lot of unfortunate loss of life and illness in these areas from a medical perspective. And now as these businesses try to recover, what are your thoughts about being able to help them? I think you and I could drive up and down Dixie Highway throughout this district right now, and there's no place that we would not stop for a meal that doesn't have a sign that says, "Hey, help wanted." What can you do as a commissioner?
Well, this pandemic has thrown us all off our base, and now people are demanding more money to come and work. A situation in Miami Gardens, where a Chili's closed because they didn't have the staff to maintain regular business. We have to incentivize that situation, make it palatable for residents and people seeking jobs to come into the workplace without forcing the business itself to go under. So we give those small businesses various incentives to open, help them with their salaries, and make sure that that core of small businesses, which the gentleman said prior to me is the backbone of our communities, become and remain a healthy entity within the community.
Okay. And within this district, there's a significant number of cities, municipalities in this district. As a commissioner, how would you make sure that the funds coming from the county, the tax base that goes to them to come back, is used effectively?
Well, first of all, you got to be transparent. Use the funds what they were intended to be. Do not shortchange any municipality who needs it. And if you have it, share it. We have to communicate with each other on a constant basis about our similarities, about our differences, and our wants versus our needs. Needs should be handled first. If it's within my district, I will make sure that they get the needed funding that they have to operate as a functioning entity within the district.
Okay. And finally, for your closing remarks, and you have 1 minute, tell us why the people from District 2 should send you now as your next level of community service to the government center downtown.
Well, Willard, this is a race between David and Goliath. You have some of my opponents that have amassed nearly $1 million from developers for their support. I've always been taught that if you approach a situation from the bottom up, instead of the top down, you'll get more things accomplished. Nobody's fighting for the little man. I believe I'm one of 2 out of the 6 that have pledged to help those average citizens and not the developers and those who are considered poor. Why? Because District 2 is the poorest district in the entire county. If you pledge not to help them, you're actually saying you don't care about 1/3 of your district. And that's not who I am. I've served this community for nearly 40 years of my life, and I plan on serving it for another 8. I'm your man, DC Clark, District 2.
Mr. Clark, thank you so much for all that you've done for our community for those 4 decades in so many different realms as educator, firefighter, paramedic. I thank God most people never been in a fire. I happened to be in a fire once when I was in college. And as I walked out the building, some of your colleagues with your profession were going in, and I developed a great respect for that courage. And when other people running in one direction and you go in another direction, that says a lot about a person's character.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. And as I said at the beginning of this and mentioned to the 2 gentlemen before, it's people like you who have decided to make this sacrifice away from their families, away from their hobbies, away from other things that they would like to do to betterment our community and for all of our candidates. And thank you very much for being willing to do this so that you can improve our community for the rest of us. And thank you. And we owe you that gratitude at all of our candidates tonight.
Thanks again.
Okay, Mr. Richard Cooper at the Miami-Dade League of Cities, if you have any closing remarks. We have covered all of our topics with our candidates who were with us tonight. Always an honor to be with you and your team and hear all that these great people want to do to serve us. And thank you for inviting me. It's always an honor to be here and learn more about the people in our community who are going to lead us. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shepard, for always being present for the League of Cities. Thank you to all the candidates and to our viewers. Please remember to vote. It's one of our privileges, one of our rights, and we have to take it seriously. Once again, Willard Shepard, we can't thank you enough for volunteering your time, for your community service, for your service at the state and national level. We're very grateful to you. Thank you.
Thank you.